Welcome to the IT Fundamentals Training Series. This is Mark Haupt. I am your host, and today we're going to talk about IoT, the Internet of Things. So I look forward to sharing with you all these little things that make up the Internet. Here we go. Welcome to the IT Fundamentals Training Series. This is episode 31, and I am your host, Mark Haupt. We are going to talk about Internet of Things today. We're actually going to start on page 155 and just very quickly talk about gaming consoles, because I categorize gaming consoles as IoT. Now, here's why. Let's take a look at, first of all, the definition of IoT. So IoT can be described in a number of different ways, but the way that the book describes the IoT is this. The Internet of Things is the network of devices that are able to communicate with each other and exchange data, and it's one of the hottest topics in the computing today. So hottest topic part is not the definition, but they want to define it as they're able to communicate with one another. Now, what we will find with the gaming devices is that gaming devices are single-threaded type of devices. In other words, you can use them only for one function, which is very similar characteristic with IoT devices. They're used for one function and one function only. And then the second characteristic is that they're networked together, so they are working off of one another through the internet. And we all know the gaming consoles are exactly that. They are single-threaded type of computing devices that when attached to the internet, you're able to use that device to interact with other devices of similar types and be able to game or play the game with other individuals. Now, yes, you can play multiple games on these gaming devices, but reality is these devices are fine-tuned to have high graphics output, high actionable output from the CPUs, and a significant amount of volatile memory. So if we go back to page 155, we look at the gaming consoles and the definition there. A gaming console is a computer with a single specialized purpose to play games. To facilitate this, consoles have a special input device called a controller. We all know the controllers in our hands that move things around, which essentially, honestly, are pointing devices. They are not anywhere near keyboards, but they're pointing devices with multiple levels of pointing capability. So kind of think of it that way. You know, gaming devices used to have Blu-ray and DVDs on them, but now most everything runs off of the network. You download the game, you put it on the SSD or some form of a hard drive, you run the initial pieces off of the application, off of that hard drive, and then you reach out for the multi-mode capabilities out on the internet. So there is a quick history of gaming consoles here. I will admit that in figure 3.31, that brings back memories. Okay, yes, I am old enough to have dealt with the first version of Pong and actually played Pong. And well, that's just the way it is. That's where I got my start on computing, is with Pong, and then moved to Commodore 64s, and then the Apple IIe's and the Apple IIc's, and built my first development. My code development was making a turtle walk across an Apple IIe, I believe it was a IIe computer screen in 1980, let's say 1984, and over in 1984, and I would have been in 6th grade at that point, the spring of 84. I'm going to say that was the first time I'd made a computer do something I wanted it to do. So table 3.2, take a look at that and just glance at it. You don't need to memorize the differences between a PlayStation and an Xbox and a Nintendo Switch and all that kind of stuff, but just kind of glance at it to know what you're looking at there. And then the video card performance section on 157, you know, these video card performances are probably the key to making these videos or these gaming consoles work pretty well, because a lot of that action that you see on the screen and the inputs that are coming from your controller are actually processed by the GPU. Well, the inputs from the controller might be processed by the CPU, but it will depend on the game. But the motion aspect, the things you see on your screen, are in fact presented by the GPU, and the motion, the clarity of motion there. All right, let's move on to real Internet of Things. Now, Internet of Things here that we're talking about are consumer and household devices. And you might be asking, okay, what's the difference between consumer and household devices? So consumer devices are things that you might use that are not necessarily in your house, but they could be in your house. They could be inside of an office building, like a CCTV or video device, or maybe if you look on one of the figures in figure 3.34 on page 164, you could see the tag reader there for easy pass tags. Those are Internet of Things that would be at the consumer device level. Actually, they're marking them as commercial uses, but really the consumer uses are commercial devices that are used more by you and I. So then they look at household devices here. And, I mean, you can have these IoT devices. So your TV, your thermostat, your lighting electrical system inside of your house, your stove, your microwave, your dishwasher, your refrigerator, all of those things could be network capable and have IoT devices inside of them. The point of a lot of these devices is that they can communicate with the internet, and they can share information up on the internet in order to make your life easier. So, for example, you may have a weighted shelf inside of your refrigerator, and your milk goes there, and it knows when that milk is getting low by the weight that's on it, and it will automatically go out and order and put that milk into your grocery list, so you can order it. And it might be tied in with another IoT device like the Amazon Alexa or something along those lines, where that in turn will then transmit it out and send it out to Amazon, and the package shows up on your doorstep 2 days later and you don't even realize it. So those types of things. Then you also have other stuff like the Amazon Fire and Apple TV and Chromecast. All of these are IoT types of devices as well. So you could plug in those devices, or you could plug in your DVD player, your sound system, and things like that into your internet. So these things can be very valuable, but they can also be very intrusive. And I'll be honest with you, for a while there, these types of IoT devices were being built in and pushed by quite a lot of people, saying, hey, look how much it's going to make your life easier. In the past year or two, I've seen a significant drop off, and I can't tell why, particularly whether the IoT devices are just becoming so commonplace that we're not talking about them anymore, or if there's actually a drop off in the desire to use them and have them interact with our lives. I know for a while there, especially with the pandemic that was going on, there was a movement where these things were being viewed as being too intrusive into the lives, where they were collecting too much data about you to determine, your health status. They were even talking, oh my goodness, they were talking about IoT devices like toilets that would, I hate to say it this way, but take your human waste. It would analyze it as it's flushing it down the toilet to determine whether your electrolytes were correct, or whether you have the right amount of vitamins in your waste going out the system, or perhaps even if you have been infected and didn't know about your infection to COVID, things like that. And there was a real pushback on whoa, that's a little too far. The government doesn't need to know about that information. The device, the data doesn't need to be collected. So there was some pushback on that type of situation. But reality is that many people have their heating and cooling systems that are managed by these IoT devices. I know a lot of people have that capability with their app. They'll go away and then they'll set their temperature, as they're on their way home. So it will cool the house or raise the temperature depending on where you live. The other thing that IoT devices got into a little trouble with is these security systems. There's been a lot of hacks go against the the doorbell type of systems or other security camera type of systems that have been placed in your homes. So it's very possible that there's been a little bit of a shift or movement away from using these, especially since the rise of artificial intelligence the past couple of months. This is being recorded in August of 23, and AI has been on a significant rise. I mean, just an astronomical rise for the last 6 to 8, 9, 10 months. And I think that there are some people that usually would be on the fence or agnostic about these types of things that are now starting to think, I don't want that thing in my house collecting data that then gives it to one of these AI devices that tells the world or tells someone else about what's going on in my house. There have also been some criminal cases where things like TVs or computers that have camera devices on them, especially during COVID, had been used to spy on or even sometimes inadvertently catch things that go on inside of homes that shouldn't be going on inside of homes. Abuse, things like that. So you could argue that they've been useful from that perspective, but also intrusive. What goes on inside of a person's home, even the United States Supreme Court has repeatedly said what goes on inside someone's bedroom is their business, not the business of the state or not the business of the government. And that is being challenged right now with some of these cameras and different IOT devices that we're putting in. So any type of device that you have inside of your home that could possibly interconnect with the internet and move in the other direction are the areas that you have to be challenged at. Make sure you take a look at the IoT devices that are associated with your car as well. All right, commercial devices are even another thing that we need to take a look at. And the same thing, I'm not going to go through my diatribe there, but you really need to be careful, especially about the medical devices. People that have the medical devices that implanted inside of you could be incredibly valuable for pushing medicines for people with diabetes or perhaps even heart ailments to defibrillators and things like that. But at the same time, there's been many instances of those things being hacked or the data from them being hacked that has caused a great amount of grief. So we have to find a way to secure these devices, the data that comes from them, and also use them responsibly. So medical devices are one of the biggest IoT devices out there for commercial use right now. Of course, manufacturing uses them, transportation uses them to let you know when a bus or a train is going to show up on time, and so on and so forth along those lines. So if you move through this to page 165, I really hammered home the issues of standards and governance and all those kinds of things and the data storage. All right, so that wraps up almost chapter 3 for us. We are moving along quite quickly on this. We've made through this chapter in about a week. We are going to do the chapter review and the review questions in episode 32. Again, this is episode 31. So come back and join us for 32 to review the chapter, and then we'll start with chapter 4, which is operating systems. And we're going to really start diving a little bit deep in what you can do to run applications on top of these operating systems. All right, episode 32 in the bag. Make sure you contact me, mhaupt@commonsensesecurity.net. Please let me know how things are going. I really want to know. We'll talk later. Thanks. Bye.